There's no time like the present, and I know you've got a lot of time on your hands, so this is the perfect time to make perfectly roasted chicken, and I'm gonna show you how. Let's get all our ingredients and get ready to roast. Everyone should be able to make the most perfect roasted chicken. It's one of those recipes that you'll always use time and time again, and especially now during this whole quarantine pandemic issue we're having, which I hope is over soon. If you're in the house and you've got all this time, perfect these recipes that you will love to really know how to do well, and just whip out whenever you want to. Okay, first things first, I want to show you how to make a dry brine, because you can start the dry brining process early in the morning, even the night before. There are a few spices you'll need. This is like let's just say Middle Eastern. I just took a look at my spices and came up with a mix that I was really happy with. I'm going to show you the spices. Here they are. So we're going to rub the dry rub all over the chicken, inside the cavity and under the skin. Here's how it's done. Then in the fridge it goes, and it sits there for hours. It can be overnight, or I woke up at 8 a.m. today and it's almost 3 right now, so 7 hours is great. So I'm gonna say 6 hours to overnight is totally fine. What I want you to keep in mind is that when your bird goes into the oven, it's great to bring it up to room temperature first, so that it doesn't slow the cooking process down and then your timing is all off. My oven just beeped, so it's preheated, and I think this is good enough. It's been sitting out for about 45 minutes. I am going to drizzle it everywhere with olive oil, and I'm gonna try and keep the spices that I dry rubbed all over. I'm not washing this chicken. The marinade is perfect. I don't like to measure this because you want between like a 4 and 5 pound bird, and you want to evenly coat it. Give it a nice flip. I have olive oil rubbed all over the bird. And now we have to truss it. And I'm not a fancy trusser, I'm just gonna tie the legs together and tuck the wings. Bada bing, bada boom. It's time to truss the bird and throw it in, but first, I have just like a quarter of an onion, and I'm just gonna cut it in half and shove it into the cavity. And I'm going to put just a tiny wedge of this lemon in there as well. Just a tiny little piece. And I'm not tying it too tight or anything like that. I've got, I don't know, like a 14-inch length piece of string, and I'm just going to cross the legs, just cross them. And then I go on top, loop around once, and then loop around each leg once. And then I'm gonna loop around the whole thing on each side once, and now I can tie it. And that's it, because we're gonna cut it off when we're done, okay? And then the wings, I'm just gonna tuck them under, and you just literally take this and you shove it under the bird while it's cooking. And if they come undone, you can cap them with like a teeny little foil cap, and that'll protect them. Just to make sure our bird stays nice and moist, we're gonna add a cup of liquid. It can be water or broth. I like to use broth. I like to glaze my birds. Sometimes you just put the spices on, you cook it, you're done. Other times, I like to have a little added pizzazz flavor and color. It just looks gorgeous, it tastes delicious, and it adds like another element of flavor to your chicken. So in this case, we're making a pomegranate sherry, tangy, delicious glaze. It has a little bit of garlic in it, a little bit of peppercorn, and some herbs. If you have fresh herbs, use fresh herbs. In this case, I use dried herbs. because I don't want to have to run to the grocery store just for fresh herbs. So let's see how the glaze is made for this chicken. The consistency you want is just enough to coat the back of a spoon, and you want it still runny enough so that when you drizzle it, it has some viscosity, but it's not thick and syrupy like a candy or a honey. I use a basting brush to lightly dab onto the chicken, which you will see every time I go in to glaze my chicken. Okay guys, so here we are roasting our chicken at a higher temperature. I've set it at 400 for 10 minutes on one side, and then I rotate the sheet for another 10 minutes, roast it at 400, and then we're gonna drop the temperature down and cook it very, very low and slow. And we're gonna spin it around. First round of the 10 minutes at 400 is up. We flipped it halfway, and then we went another 10 minutes. That timer is also up, so let's take a look and see what we've got. I just wanna show you what's happening at this point, okay? Okay, hang tight. I'm gonna drop my temperature down to 275 so we can start roasting this for that long, low and slow process. Okay, so you can see what's happening here. The skin is drying out on top, so it's gonna get nice and crisped once it goes that long. And the wings, that one's tucked under, but the one back here isn't. I'm just gonna wrap it. Just a really tiny piece of foil will do the trick. And voila, it's covered, it won't go anywhere. I can turn it around so you can see how I did that. See, it's nice and protected. The bird is nice and golden all over. You can see its beautiful color already. And do not worry, it will get really golden, really crisp, really beautiful after it's in there for that long time. We're gonna do our first glaze on our chicken, and I want you to see just how gentle we are when we do this. Okay, so I have my pastry brush here, and I want to show you a good view. There we go. And I'm just going to take the glaze, dip it in, and I don't want to oversaturate. I'm just going to create a very thin layer all over the chicken. We're just creating a very thin coating that's all over. If you put too much, the sugars in your glaze will burn while the chicken is still cooking, so we don't want to do that. Well, that definitely was a labor of love. I can't even begin to tell you how worth it is to make chicken this way when you've got the time. The top is perfectly dried out and crispy. There's even like an air pocket, and it's plump, so it's super juicy and moist, and I cannot wait to cut this open. It needs to rest for at least 15 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this very special video. I was waiting to drop this recipe, and I think no time like the present to have the time and patience to perfect this method, because it'll come in handy during the holidays or anytime you want to impress anyone. And remember, you can use this method with any kind of spice and glaze mixture you want. This is my favorite, and I'm really happy to share it with you guys. Please stay safe out there. Please share, subscribe, and like. I'm really happy to get new followers, and if you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below.